course, the three lowest score is 6 and 7. No one invisible crowd should be getting this thing. Okay?
Well, you have to write this.
So okay, guys, listen up. Last thing, actually no, I'm just gonna open it. Okay, so welcome to the mock debate. The motion on the floor is this house believes that the education system should teach harsh realities of life to children rather than always instill hope and optimism. This house believes that the education system should teach harsh realities of life to children rather than always instill hope and optimism. Last time, the House believes that the education system should teach harsh realities of life to children rather than always instill hope and optimism. So the person who's going to be timing today's round will be Juan. So Juan will be clapping, but we suggest debaters also time themselves accordingly as well. When you skip your eyes, please use the microphone so that the recorder can also record your voice. So now we would like to invite the PM to start. The reminder is that the average for the score is 75, so that you don't get lost scoring. Now we would like to invite the Prime Minister to submit his prayer.
Hello. Okay. So the current status quo on the motion that this House believes that the education system should teach kids harsh realities of life rather than always instill hope and optimism, right? The current status quo is that there is an imbalance of teaching, which always which always instill hope and optimism, and it doesn't prepare the students to be ready for the future because they are not ready for the failures that might come from external factors. They are not ready for the failure, right? So first the definitions, right? So first we are defining harsh realities as the realities in real life that it is a competitive society and it is not so kind and to some extent selfish. And hope and optimism is meritocracy. It is always working hard and you will always get what you want, right? So today the split, I have three arguments: the role of the education system and why harsh reality should be a part of the education system, and the third one is rather establish hope and optimism grounded on reality. And my second speaker will speak about how over optimism in the education system obstruct reforms, and the second is how balanced teaching highlights the understanding of oppression. So my burden of proof in this speech, I will prove to you that it is the role of the education system and how it creates a better future and how it causes a more productive society, right? So first, the role of the education system. No, thank you. The role of the education system is to prepare the students to be ready academically and to prepare them for the future life and teach. And so how do they do that? They do that by like having career counseling in school and how to prepare the necessary life skills in order for them to survive, right? And today we are going to teach harsh realities, not pessimism. We are not harsh reality is like we are teaching them that they might fail. There is a potential to fail in real life, so they will be ready for it. And but we are not teaching pessimism, which is like we can that you can never succeed, that you are just you and you can never like achieve something you want because you are you. We are not teaching that. And so this is in line with the school principle because we are teaching them to be ready for society. So we are teaching the unnecessary life skill, no thank you, which is the principle of the school, to teach the necessary life skills in order for them to be ready for real life, right? So we believe it is the role of the education system. My second argument is like why harsh reality should be part of the education, right? So my first level of an analysis is what is harsh reality. Harsh reality is just like students like the society is more competitive and you don't always get what you want. So what happens when children graduate from school, right? So they for example, when you become like they can't cope with the reality. For example, like you were always grade A in high school, but you could not but you did but and you always thought you could do anything you want, but then you took an exam took like a doctor entrance exam, right? And then you failed, and you thought you worked hard but it didn't succeed, right? So the harms, my second level is the harms from that is like you the students will believe, no thank you, the students will believe that like failure is just them, and it creates and have them be more pessimistic to themselves, and so they are incapable of coping with the realities, and they are all alone. And the solution and why it is necessary to be teach in school is that because and in schools they no thank you in schools we have like there are always teachers, there are always friends to help you and to help you cope and to help you cope with failure, so you'll be more ready in the future. And so this is why harsh reality should be a part of the education, is to make the students more ready. And if we don't do this, it would create a more less productive society, because the students just blame themselves, right? Before moving on.
What exactly are you doing? Like, are you imposing classes to teach them about the realities of life?
No, we are readying them to saying that, oh, there is a harsh reality and you are supposed to fail. Not like because the current system right now saying that, oh, like if you work hard you will get anything you want, which is not true. There are like external factors to failure, and we are helping them be prepared for that. So moving on to my third argument is on the basis that rather than establish hope and we would rather establish hope and optimism grounded on reality, right? So what is hope and optimism grounded on reality? It is just like it is not over optimism and like to have them know what place they are in the society and how it, my second level of analysis is how it benefits, right? So first you are aware of your own limitation, and you choose which battle you can go in. For example, like if someone is good at debate, they just don't go in like do public speaking because they think they're awesome, right? So you choose your battle, and you're aware of of your possibilities, so you don't overextend yourself and then be pessimistic when you fail, right? And secondly, it encourages you to work harder because it encourages you extra effort, because if you work this hard in high school and when in university you have to work a lot harder, well, having them know that makes them work harder, and it creates a more productive, and the result is it creates a more productive so society, right? So we have proven to you that this is the role of the education system, because the role of the education system is to have the students be ready for the future, right? And second, it creates a better future because students are prepared of the harsh realities that awaits them, so they become better prepared, and they work harder, and which leads to my third burden of proof is it creates a more productive society because society because people work harder, and people don't blame themselves, and they reflect on themselves. Thank you.
You just spoke for 7 minutes, 30 seconds, 7 3 We would like to thank the Prime Minister. Now we would like to invite the Leader of Opposition to proceed today's debate.
The opposition side believes that the facts, lessons, knowledge, or skills of life that children are taught in school is a necessary thing, but we don't believe that it is more important than instilling them hope and optimism, because we see that by implementing them just skills of life or a specific lessons, it just makes them know what the world is up to right now. But what we need more from the education system is that we want these children who will become the base of the society in the future to make change. So here's why we believe that we should not just teach harsh realities of life rather than instilling hope and optimism. So let me start with my rebuttals. First rebuttals, the Prime Minister come up and said they are going to have like academic skills. No, they are going to have academic skills and skills of life taught in schools. And we have theorized how would they separate these lessons to give out to children. We see the normal curriculum of the schools is to give those facts and the lessons to children. So here's a question for the government side. Secondly, we see that the Prime Minister has missed one of the goals of education system, which is to advance the society, to make we goes over the glass ceiling of the society. What glass ceiling means is that we can go over where we have used to be. So this is another important goals of the education system, which I will elaborate more in my arguments. Second rebuttals, the Prime Minister said that the children will not be pessimistic if they get failed with some things because they have skills of life or hard realities taught in school. But we see that in order for them to become optimistic, hope is important. Why hope is important? Because it makes them like support or encourage their minds to be stronger and to think something different that gives them goals in life rather than just accept that's a failure and do nothing about it. We need advance and development from here. The third rebuttal would be the benefits stated by the government that they can choose better where to go or where they can fit in. We say that, no please, we say that, well, the education system with harsh realities might give them what they are good at or what they are professional at, but we see that by having no hope, they can't get into that point. We need hope at first place to make them get into that point, and that will be elaborate more in my arguments. So moving on to my argument. I'll be speaking about why hope is important, and my second speaker will come and talk about the story of life. The first level of my argument will be talking about the goal of education system. What is the goal of the education system? No, please. First, to educate children, to make them learn and to get knowledge about scientific knowledge, maths, that's normal for the educational system. Secondly, we want to pursue them some goals of their lives because we see that these children will grow up and become the best of our society and function on for their goals. So that they can break social advances. So we see that these children are the social tools. If we take time on them, give them hope, and plus with realities which are not hard realities, we can break the social advances. Second level, the link of the goals and hope. First, children go to school with the mentality that they should learn and do well at school so that they can make sure that they have careers in the future, they have achievements in the future. Plus, with the parents' influence that they should go to school so that you'll not be unemployed or you'll achieve in your future. So this gives them the power to study at school. But moreover, we see that, yes?
Why can't you have hope that is founded on the basis of reality?
Well, as I said, hope grounded on reality moves people nowhere. Hope grounded on reality stops people, hope in reality just make people see what the reality is and okay, what they're going to do in their future if this happens with their life. But we see that in order to make them deals with it and move further, we need instilling of hope and optimism, which is to make them hope for something more advanced. So moving back to the argument, we see that the link of the goals and hope gives the children foundation of personality. They can think of what they want to do in the future, which the hope allows them to know and to know that their goals in the future can be achieved if they have hope at first place. For example, there's a minorities group or discrimination in the society where people think that the leader of the country or the president should be American people. But because of this, hope is important. Hope make people think that, make the minorities or maybe African American people think that, okay, in the future, they can be the president too. Not just stop their minds that the president should be the Americans. If not, without hope, it stops this minorities group of people to move forward, and this would stop progressing the society. So third level, this can establish harsh realities. We can establish harsh realities later because we see that kids have simple minds. So what we need now is to give them hope, which is the basic thoughts of their minds that could lead them to learn better hard realities when they grow up and have more complicated minds. So here's why we strongly believe that instilling hope and optimism is important. Thank you.
We would like to thank the leader of opposition for speech. Now we would like to invite the Deputy Prime Minister to continue
We don't think that opposition can argue hope on the vacuum, right? Because everyone can have hope, but it doesn't mean that the school should take away the ability for those people to cope with failures when they encounter the mistakes that they have made in life, or sometimes the unexpected failure that these students have to encounter later on in the future. That's why it's not only their burden alone to only say that these people have hope, they also need to defend. What happens when this over-optimism leads to them unable to cope with failures in the future? On why would you insist preaching an imbalanced teaching of over-optimism instead of instilling them that there are sometimes in life that things can go wrong, that there are hardship in life, and the more you try, sometimes you might not even succeed. We think that the culture of meritocracy is becoming toxic in the society, and we need a certain balance to make sure that students are able to strive better in the future with a proper understanding grounded based upon reality, right? I have two things I'm going to talk about in my speech. Firstly, I'm going to talk about how over-optimism obstruct necessary reforms in education system, and secondly, how we are able better highlight oppression in society, which is the same goal they'll be able to achieve if the opposition were to argue how they want advances in the society. But before that, a few rebuttals, right? But let's first deal with this weird question coming from them. They ask us, how are you going to give this lesson anyways? We think that's pretty simple, right? And that's what's happening right now in the status quo. That you want to change the learning culture instead of being it based on meritocracy. Maybe you want to teach them that sometimes meritocracy isn't everything. It is not the guarantee of success. That sometimes there are external factors like your racial prejudices. Like for example, some people might be able to work harder than you just because you are the best in school doesn't guarantee the best in university or in work life, for example. Or you can even give them an extra civic lesson or counseling to make sure that these kids are exposed to the understanding that life can be harsh, that there are things out there aside from your academic achievement. Now move on to my rebuttal. Firstly, when they talk about how they want to be able to make changes in the future and advance society, we think that kind of changes can only be meaningful and can only be effective when you create a proper understanding of what society is like for you to implement any change, right? You need to first understand what are the problems in the society, what are the harsh realities in order for you to implement any changes or introduce certain changes that are important in this regard. That's why they can't just say they want advances without properly analyzing on how are you going to achieve those advances without even having a proper understanding of what realities are grounded upon. And more importantly, if we want to talk about minority being able to strive in the system, I'll deal with that in my argument. Secondly, I'll take you after rebuttal, Kevin. Sit down. So secondly, right, when they talk about how hope is needed, we think that this hope, I've already told you, that needs to be grounded based on reality. And that's why balanced teaching is extremely necessary, right? Because people always have an incentive to strive harder regardless of the harsher reality or whatnot, because they want a better life for themselves. It means that with the proper understanding of what the harsh reality means, it means they can readjust their efforts, whether or not they should put extra effort beyond what they have been putting throughout their whole life in order to get into university or in order to get into this position. So without proper understanding, there's no subjective standard of to what extent you are able to put on your effort. If you only think that the more you effort, the hardest I can put, then it means you can yield good result, right? When you know that there are potential for failures, this is when you're able to readjust effort or maybe rethink the battle that you're entering into, whether or not it's suitable for you. That's why regardless of hope, it needs to be grounded upon reality, and that can only come with proposition side. Yes, Kevin.
The motion states teaching harsh realities of life rather than instilling hope.
Rather than
If you're doing both, which component is more important?
Kevin, rather than always selling hope and optimism, perhaps because you were late, that you didn't get the full motion. That's why it is not our burden to tell you that we need to be able to put our harsher reality over hope, right? It is not only our burden to prove why harsh reality should be included in the curriculum, and there should not be an overemphasis of meritocracy in this sense. Don't try to screw the motion, because you were late. Too bad. Now, moving on to my argument. So, firstly, how over-optimism obstructs necessary reforms in the education system. The thesis is this: how over-optimism and the culture of meritocracy creates an illusion that imposes arbitrary standard of improvement, which largely excluded children who are failing. So the context is this: what do they exactly do with those who are failing? Right? They have the perception that the reason why you fail is because you don't try hard enough. It's because you don't work enough. You don't revise hard enough for your exam. That's why you're an F student. That's why you're a D or C student. That's why you're not able to achieve what you want to achieve. And this becomes extremely problematic. I'm not sure the time because it stopped here. So this becomes extremely problematic because at the end of the day, instead of attributing the blame to the system, you're blaming the students for that failure because they don't work hard enough. And because of this reason, it takes away the effort for the school to create any necessary reforms to accommodate to the failing student who just don't fit in this meritocratic world based on one certain standard of like test taking, right? And because of this reason, this becomes extremely harmful because these teachers now want to abandon the children, and those who just don't work enough is because of them, but not the school system. So we need to introduce a new learning culture to make teachers realize that meritocracy does not lead to subjective standard that they impose on kids. That maybe there needs to be other alternative or multiple instruments to make sure these person can survive in the academic world. Moving on to my second argument. Please tell me the time because I don't know. So highlight the oppression in the societies, right? We think that, and right now, what you're teaching disregarding harsh reality is that those black people or those women who are failing behind is not because of the racial prejudices or because of the oppressive societal structure that's obstructing them, but it's because they don't work hard enough, especially when it comes to overemphasis on meritocracy, like in American culture, that you need to be able to strive the American dream. That as long as you're meritocratic, you can achieve whatever you want to do. And because of this reason, they tend to attribute the blame to those black people who are just stupid, who are just not the racial minority, who can't strive, not because of their racial prejudices, but because of themselves, who are racially inferior to other people. And this is something very harmful, right? That's why a lot of people are rallying against affirmative actions because they believe that only meritocracy can justify your college entrance or your entrance in work life or in politics life. And because of this reason, we think we need to be able to break the understanding that they are now neglecting the societal structure onto the ability of an individual to achieve. That's why what we're doing here is that we are changing narrative. We want to give an extra justification to affirmative actions. That these people, the reason why they're failing is because of harsh reality. It's not because they're not working hard enough. And we want to be able to highlight discussion on this harsh reality so that these minorities are able to be exposed to this kind of conditions since young age, and that's a better way of tackling such structural discrimination in a society I'm very proud to propose.
Good.
I'm just waiting for the judge.
Oh.
We would like to thank DPM for speech. Now we would like to invite DLO for
So let me get this straight. Their argumentation is meritocracy is bad because if you get a bad grade, it might not be because of you, it might be because of the system. So if you tell them the harsh reality, they will learn to blame the system instead of themselves. I don't know. I mean, if you're in school and you get an F, that's probably a good indicator that you should probably work a bit harder. And even if the system is at fault, what are you going to do? Sit down, smoke pot, and blame the system forever and never improve? That just doesn't make any sense in today's debate. So unless you can tell me what instilling hope through harsh reality is, it's kind of hard for us to understand what exactly it is you're doing. Because we actually did kind of question you. What are you going to do? You're going to give them a grade, and even if someone gets 100 points, you give them 90 because that's not how life works, kid. I don't know what exactly you're doing, because literally saying, kid, life is tough. That's it. I mean, that's like a one-liner. So I don't really know what is it exactly that they're doing. And it's important to tell us what they're doing, right? Because if depending on how they want to instill it or how young the kid is, really changes the dynamics of this debate. Now, Nat mentioned that's what we have to teach them since young age. I don't know how young that is. Think about this. Picture this, okay? So we got like a black minority or whatever, right, in the States where like blacks are being oppressed. Their stance is, yeah, let's teach them the harsh reality so that, that little kid knows that he's in an inferior position in life. So he's got to work harder or he's got to blame the system. Like, how does teaching them harsh reality of life going to change anything? Their reaction is, well, it's going to make them more prepared. Dude, if you're a minority, you're being oppressed almost every day. You're getting that lesson through life, and not necessarily through school. By teaching them through school, it just sort of kills them off a little bit more. Like, they die a little bit more inside when teachers confirm that they indeed are the inferior part of society. And that's pretty bad, I just don't see any goods coming from their side. Okay, so then, all right, so as promised, I'm going to tell you guys about the story of life, right? So, listen to this. When you guys are a child, right, responsibilities change as you, actually, unlike you, I will take it right away.
So if there is a black person, a black kid who keep on blaming himself as he's stupid or not work hard enough instead of blaming the system, so you're saying that that's okay?
Yes, I'm saying that's better than blaming the system and doing nothing. Like, unless you can show me that it's better to, like, look, you're talking about kids here, right? It's not like he's like a freaking politician or something, right? He's a freaking 12-year-old kid. What do you want him to go on the street and riot? If there really is a problem with the system, under the status quo, there are already mechanisms like politicians, for instance, or older adults, or, people that can actually change the system. It doesn't necessarily have to come from the kid in the end of the day. It just doesn't make sense. Instead of making him go, yeah, the system is bad, so, yeah, I'm not going to work hard. Like, this doesn't make any sense, right? What harsh reality hope through harsh reality? This doesn't make any sense to me. All right, so story of life. So when you're a kid, right, you start off with minimal responsibility. But believe it or not, in every stage of your life, you're going to think that you are at the hardest stage of your life. So for instance, when you're a kid, you would think that following parents is the worst thing that can ever happen. When you become a high school kid, you're going to think that IB exam is the worst, or A-level is the worst thing that can ever happen to you. When trying to find a job, you're going to have so much pressure. When you become an adult, the responsibility changes so that you're financially more responsible towards your spouse, or towards your partner, or towards your kid, right? And that becomes the greatest responsibility of life. The moral of the story is that when you're a child, okay, and your incentive to study is that you want to get good grades because good things can come to you, and also because your parents are forcing you. The moment you take that hope away, the kids go, so why am I studying then? What's the point? Right? Like, because the harsh reality is part of the society actually do require you to have a good grade, actually do require you to strive in the educational system, and actually do require you to have some sort of knowledge in the end of the day. The moment you try to blame the system, they don't have any incentive to study more further on, because there's nothing pushing them further. Now, is there a problem with the status quo? The answer is no. Like, look, if you take a look at the problems within the status quo, it's not because they haven't told the harsh reality back in school. It did not derive from there, right? Neither did anyone ever said, oh my God, I wish they told me this in school. Had they told me that in school, I would have been a better person today. That doesn't make sense, because whether or not they told you this in school, it's not like you're able to prepare for the system. You're able to prepare for the system through life experience. And that's why my argument is a story of life, right? When you actually get up and graduate from high school, going into college, you understand and you realize the harsh realities that maybe the gain towards passing is 90, but then they look at other factors in the end of the day as well. When you grow up out of college and you go for job application, you understand that even though your score or your grade is extremely good, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get that job. Now, the question is it really necessary to tell them all that chunk when they're at 12 years old? Like, the answer is no, because they're able to learn that automatically, and they're able to adapt through that, given the very unique responsibilities in which they have. If we talk about case scenarios like minorities, which is something that they came up and talked about, a minority, I'm going to refrain from using black. So minority, for instance, right, they're able to cope with their own life experience through their own unique through their own unique experience in the end of the day, because they will encounter them. And when they encounter them, there will be more incentives for them to push them further. For instance, if I am an adult, right, and I understand that just because I'm successful, just because I am successful in the past, doesn't mean I'm going to be successful in the future. Even if I fail, I have responsibilities and financial incentives that would push me further and keep on going, even if I know that I'm going to fail. So for instance, if I have a family to feed, even if I should fail, I will continuously go on and work harder. When you're at the young age, when you take away that incentive, you have no other incentive for you to work hard, right? Because they're assuming these kids are sane. Like, yeah, Tommy, study hard. Mom, why am I doing this? Oh, because you may or may not succeed. You know, it doesn't make sense because when you get older in life, there are other incentives to push you through. But at the younger age, there literally is nothing. And there literally is nothing that you can prepare. And that's why we keep hampering from that side. Like, what is it exactly you're going to do? Because there's nothing much you can prepare. The problem with preparing them so often is actually really, really bad. Because when you start teaching them the harsh reality of life, number one, the very argument in which they talk about, like minority groups, is going to be worse. Because they understand and they double confirm from the teacher that they are indeed the minority. That doesn't only make them lose hope, it makes them lose incentive to study. And when you take away that very incentive to study, you literally have nothing left. We're very proud to oppose. Thank you.
We would like to thank every leader of opposition for his speech. Now we would like to continue the debate by inviting them
Ladies and gentlemen, sorry. Okay, sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, normally Kevin is very intuitive, but for some reason this round he said that the kids will stop working hard the moment you expose them to harsh realities because they will be discouraged to the point that why do I have to study? Number one, that is a concession that teaching harsh realities can be achieved in education. It's not our burden to prove in which way directly that we are going to teach these kids, but if you want a class, we can do a class because we already have moral development characters. We already have teachers teaching in class why you need to study math because the only job that is going to be successful is this. If you not do this, your life can be doomed. These are the things that already discussed in school anyway. Secondly, we think that the reason why everyone are working hard, don't know where you're going to end up being, is because all of you are afraid of being failed in the future. You don't know whether you can be successful. This is the reason why people have an incentive to keep working hard. So I don't necessarily understand why is it intuitive for him to say the moment you are exposing him to the possibility of being failure and emphasizing the possibility of failure, the kids suddenly stop from trying harder. We think that there is no analysis. Ladies and gentlemen, second idea of this debate is that they miss the nuances of these motions. The motion asks opposition to prove why education always prioritizes or to instill hope and optimism at the expense of harsh realities. The motion nevertheless suggests that government has to be able to talk about why harsh reality should be included. But if you want us to prove why it is more important, we are trying to prove consistently down the bench why teaching harsh reality doesn't necessarily lead to the kids being failed, doesn't necessarily discourage the kids. In fact, if anything, allow the kids to work harder. That is co-opting the principle that opposition want to have. Secondly, on the idea is why harsh reality, such as the possibility of failing, you might not get the job that you want, you might not get into the college that you want, are the things that necessarily linked to the idea that you will stop working hard. There is no link coming from side opposition and something that is unpersuasive to begin with. So move on to my first clash in today's debate. Hope and optimism are not always the priority in education because it destroys the purpose of the school. Something that opposition conceded that schools should be able to teach the kids something that can be advanced in society, something that helps the individual. But they nevertheless link to the idea that why suddenly when we expose these kids to all the idea of hardship, suddenly they will stop being advanced. Why? Because at the end, natural incentive of being failed, a natural incentive of not getting job, natural incentive of not having good family is a stimulus of why you are working hard to ensure that the possibility of that happening is very little. The possibility of that happening is minimized, right? Something that they never argue, yes.
They will understand that when they're older. But why is a 12-year-old kid to understand that if he doesn't work hard now, in the future 20 years, he may or may not fail?
Because you never understand. Moral character development in school is very necessary to attitude and behavior of adult. If you, since young you were taught that everything is so beautiful, the world is going to understand you, and everything will be alright. That's why you have kids that committing suicide because the reality hit them so hard. Right? This is a problem that they never understand on this side of the house. Second thing, the idea is the idea that when you teach optimism and all these things, to an extent that excluding harsh realities, you create two levels of complacency. Firstly, the idea of student complacency, right? Student complacency inhibiting the student from self-actualizing what is good for him, or what would be my second plan if something didn't go the way I want. This is something that the nuances that opposition refuse to engage, because we want to expose to the diversity of what can be successful, what is meaningful to your life. The moment that you realize that I can fail on something, the most intuitive response is that you're going to come up with a second plan. Am I going to be okay with studying something else, not necessarily doctor? We think this is a positive change in school. This is a positive change of students that students need to have, and something that opposition never, because they create a structure that keep allowing them to do the things that they might not be good at. The moment that the student realizes that they are going to fail, the moment that student realize that this is not what I actually want, is the moment that you realize you are in the middle of entrance exam. The moment that you realize that you are in second years of doctorate college. This is something that the student feel like I cannot go back in time to change anymore. I have not been fully prepared of am I going to be okay to change university or move course, and keep doing until you become a failure doctor, you become a failure engineer. This is the things that can happen in oppositions because they lack the ability to paint how the world look like. Second complacency that we argue that Kevin refused to rebut next argument is the idea of reformation in school. Because we think that the school has to be able to acknowledge that society has evolved. Society has become more competitive than what society used to be 50 years ago, when the job is enough for everyone, when we don't have migrants, when we all not open to people around the world to compete in a job market. The moment that the school stop realizing this reality is the moment that school no longer has an incentive on themselves to reform. The idea of blaming the system is happening on your side, because these adults that you want so bad to realize that there is a problem in school, going out to society is going to bite back your type of education, because this is a type of people that will say that the education hasn't prepared me for this. This is the reason why I fail. The moment you create incentive structure on government is the moment that school create gifted program. Is the moment that school invest resources on funding specific type of group, STEM education for example, to make sure that you are competitive when you want to enter a specific group of market. This is something that never happened in opposition, because you tell the kids, as long as you're doing past paper, as long as you listen to me, you are going to do fine. The moment that the kid realized that they did not do fine, the teacher would have already been dead, or not going to see the teachers already in the same school. We think this is something problematic on opposition. Third thing, right, why is this not the role of education? Because incentive, Kevin argued this idea that incentive is taken away since young because adult has the financial to move on. But if the characterization was true, that the children are likely to be discouraged when you teach them, why isn't it the same as well when you are adult, but since young, you were told that everything will be okay? The moment that you face the reality that everything is not okay as you expected, and you have realized that there is no time for you to change as well, this is where give up is more likely an opposition as opposed to proposition. We don't understand logic without analysis. Move on to my second clash in today's debate. Why is teaching harsh reality strengthen social movement and changes? This is something also Kevin never realized to engage with that analysis. Because the idea of glass ceiling that the first speaker want to propose, never defended by Kevin, was that the kid will face it anyway, why is it something we need to emphasize in education? Because today's society never teach kids that the reason why black kids is bullied is because of discrimination, but rather attribute it to the naughty and nature of children in general as opposed to discrimination. Keep telling them that black people can be successful when you are trying harder is to refuse that there is a structural discrimination that are perpetuated in society, in family, in workplace. This is something that you can't tackle if you not highlight this discussion since young. This is where they admit that the kids are young and can be taught. Therefore, by putting white kids to realize that there is structural problem at home and at school, it's the moment that you realize that the strength of political movement and social movement will be much larger. Because of this reason, we are proud to propose.
We would like to thank the government whip. Now we would like to invite our opposition whip to conclude their meetings.
Oh. How do I? Yes. Can I?